Hello everyone and welcome to the 4.0 Tactics Vanguard overview. We are here in Knights of the Fallen Empire. We're level 65 on our new main. We are taking a look at the awesome burst spec of the Vanguard, which is Tactics, of course. Not a lot changed. Not a lot really has changed in the old the icons changed. We've got the tanky spec, shield specialist, we got a plasma, which is the dot spec, which I haven't played yet. I haven't had a chance to take a look at. Tactics is what I leveled with. I haven't done any raiding with it yet, but I have done quite a bit of gameplay with it, and it probably will be, I think it will be pretty decent for raiding. Again, single target fights is where it excels. Also fights with target switching is pretty nice. Fights like Underlurker, where we're having to change target very quickly, move from target to target. We have to kill those lurkerlings very fast, so it's very useful in that situation. Okay, so what's it all about? What's changed? Well, we have gained a new passive at level 64 called Cell Burn. Okay, Cell Burst causes the target to burn for 399 elemental damage over 3 seconds. This effect stacks up to 4 times with each stack of energy load. This does not change our rotation in any way. It does not change our priority in any way as well. Cell Burst is still our high priority ability. Again, we get Cell Burst, we spend energy loads. Okay, we generate energy loads by out of combat. We use our out of combat heal. See here, 4 stacks. We'll slap it on the target and we'll show you what it looks like. There it is. It's stacked up to 4 times, so it's doing quite a decent amount of damage. So it's 399 times 4 basically is what you get from that. So there you go. That's what you get. A little dot, 3 seconds. You know, it's like, hey dot, bye dot. Kind of useless. It doesn't really change anything in terms of our priority. Okay, Cell Burst is still one of our top priorities. How you generate it in combat is by high impact bolt. Okay, that's how you generate it in combat. But we'll take a look at the new utilities first. There's not really much to explain here. Everything is pretty much the same here. We still have Havoc training though. That didn't get nerfed. That was the thing we were worried about. Increased critical strike damage bonus of stock strike, high impact bolt, tactical surge, gut, assault plastic, and cell burst by 30%. Also, assault plastic damages the target. Target becomes susceptible, increasing the damage it takes from tech attacks by 5% for 45 seconds. This is a tech attack. Okay, most of our attacks are tech attack. I'll cover that in gearing, why that's important that most of our attacks are tech attacks when we come to gearing. Okay, let's look at utilities. Utilities, most of these are still the same. You can check out the 3.0 video. Our one new utility in the skillful one is that Neural Jolt will slow the target by 50% for 6 seconds. Quite a bad idea to take in PvE. We've already discussed these in the previous videos, so we won't really be mentioning much of this in the 4.0 video, because the 3.0 video is still pretty relevant. Again, I like having a movement speed. Battlefield training is nice. Movement speed is nice. Gets us out of things. Good, gets us to our target as well. Quicker is a DPS increase. I like it. Muzzle Augs, again, increase the range of Ion Pulse Tactical Surge by 2 meters. Okay, Tactical Surge is what we want. We don't use Ion Pulse at all. I think it gets replaced by Tactical Surge, actually. Tactical Surge when nothing else is available, really, and we've got above, I think it's above 60% energy. We are going to use, I think it's actually 70. It is 70, actually, because it diminishes in sort of thirds. So yeah, Tactical Surge is there when we got nothing else to press, when these two are on cooldown. When our Stock Strike and our Assault Plastic are on cooldown, Tactical Surge is generally our go-to. So increasing its range gives us, you can see here, we're out of range. Assault Plastic on cooldown, it just gives us a nicer scope to move around. Okay, it's 15 meters, you know, so we're what? There you go, it gives us this sort of, that's 13 meters. No, yeah, nice BioWare maths fail. It's not a strong point. Maths, it does say out of range. It's actually 11 meters, not 15. Okay. Oh, it's 12 meters, should we say. Has that been changed? It has been changed. It used to be 5 meters. It has gone down from 5 to 2. Not maths fail. Reading fail. There. Sharp Satchel, increased explosive surge damage by 25%. Useful if we're cleaving. Generally when we're questing we are cleaving, so it is quite useful. I would take probably Reflective Armor for raiding. Iron Will, just the cooldown of Tenacity or Hold the Line by 10 seconds. Bear in mind that Hold the Line is now 45 seconds, so it's either going to come down to a choice between these two when we're raiding. We're just questing, Sharp Satchel is fine. Reducing the cooldown of Hold the Line back down to 35 seconds. It was 30 seconds, it had gone up to 45. Tenacity is your breakout of stun. Okay, there it is, Tenacity. 2-minute cooldown, reduces it down by 30 seconds, 1.5 minute cooldown. So if we're getting stunned a lot, we're going to take this. There's nothing else we really want to take. Recharging energy cells when we get stunned. If we can reliably be stunned, then yeah, we want to take that. Reduce the target's movement speed, not really. Neural Jolt, in DPS spec, we're not going to be using it. It's our taunt. Generally, we're not really going to be using it. It usually follows by a swift death. So, well, I suppose if we slow the target, I guess, but there's not really that many instances. Maybe you could argue Kaon Under Siege if you want to slow a target down. If you have to want to kite away the bloated Plague Bearers, maybe you could slow them for a bit. Occasional usage. The new ability in our Masterful tier is Surveyed Terrain. Stealth Scan increases the movement speed of all allies within the scan area, excluding ourselves by 50%, for as long as they remain within it, and 6 seconds after it expires or they leave the area. Not really be using Stealth Scan. Like, can we even use Stealth Scan in combat? I mean, it's useful. It would be useful. I don't even have Stealth Scan. I'm not a PvPer, so I don't really have Stealth Scan keybound. Do I have Stealth Scan? I don't even have it. There it is. Can we use Stealth Scan in combat? I think we can. You just drop it there and it'll increase your movement speed. So yeah, I mean, it could be useful when we have to get away from things. We're thinking Guards maybe. A little bit useful there if we're trying to get to that. We'll try it. See if we can use it in combat. We'll just get into combat now. Shoot our way at this thing. Yeah, we can use it in combat. I always thought we could never use that in combat. More useful in PvP, but useful certain fights. We have to get away from things. You could argue Underlurker as well. You know, if you need to position it right though. So I think that a Sentinel's Transcendence is always going to be preferable to Surveyed Terrain. So keep it in mind. It could be useful. I still like Electro Shield if we are taking damage. If we're taking damage, there you go. Someone messaging me there. We'll say hi. It's rude not to. Again, Electro Shield is quite nice. If we're taking constant damage, it's pretty good. Okay, Underlurker, pretty nice. Just because of that constant damage going out, it will reflect some of it back to it. It does damages the target. Sonic Rebounder is generally our go-to. Is generally our go-to ability here. Okay, so Sonic Rebounder essentially is a Saber Reflect for your entire raid. Okay, it's basically a Saber Reflect. For everyone else, doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect you. It affects everybody else in the raid. Its area of impact is your AoE taunt, which is of course your threat dump. Okay, it's your threat dump when you're not in tank stance, should we say. So Sonic Rebounder will reflect the damage of all allies. It is one of the most important raid cooldowns that we've got, actually. Especially fights like Underlurker, again, for the cross. You can get everyone in the raid. If it's an 8-man raid, you can get everyone pretty much there. Containment tactics, not really. Frontline defense, if we're doing Draxus, very useful for that. Riot Strike is our interrupt. If we're having to run away from things, we're having to be in position, then Advance the Line is very, very good. Underlurker tends to be Sonic Rebounder. Advance the Line tends to be the winner over Electro Shield. Electro Shield in story mode isn't bad, but definitely Advance the Line in hard mode. definitely we do not want to be taking damage. Accelerated reel is useless. Defensive measures is kind of useless as well. We don't use harpoon very much. Containment tactics, not really for raiding. Frontline defense, yes, because we're raiding Dread Palace again. Dread Palace is current tier content. We want to be interrupting as soon as possible. We'll move on to Heroic. The new one is Blitz that we get. After activating Storm, that is another change that we've got, is that Storm is available to all Vanguards. I've got that on the top mouse button. You can see here's Storm right in there to the target. It is a very, very good ability, very useful, and is a DPS increase on a lot of fights. Fights with target switching, very, very good. Fights like Sword Squadron, for example, is the best example of that, where we have to go from Unit 1 to Unit 2. You know, and the quicker we get to Unit 2, the more DPS we get. So, the choice generally, Blitz is alright for questing. I mean, we charge to a target, and then there's maybe other targets that we want to get. For raiding, not really. Generally, I like re-energizers for raiding. Okay, when reserve power cell is active, it recharges 10 energy cells over the next 5 seconds, and immediately increases threat generation if you're in ion cells, if you're a tank. If you're not an ion cell, it reduces threat. But what we want is the energy. Okay, this spec struggles a little bit for energy. Bear in mind, reserve power cell, our next ability costs no heat. So generally we want to use it with a channeled ability, because it's either going to be mortar volley if it's available, or pulse cannon generally. Mortar volley is your priority, because bear in mind you do have where is it? There it is. Grenadiership is what we have. Reduce the cooldown of mortar volley by 15 seconds and increase the damage it deals by 10%. So there you go. So mortar volley generally is the thing, because bear in mind the three seconds of channeling, it's costing us no energy, because bear in mind when this channels, it ticks energy every time it channels. You see here, it's ticked down 10% energy. However, when we get about 50% energy, then popping reserve power cell, popping mortar volley, it's 3 seconds. And bear in mind, we are, for 5 seconds, we're regenning 5 extra energy. So our goal is to get back to the 70%. I think it's 66. It's every third that it does ticks down. So that's really what we want when we get short on energy. We can get a bit short on energy, especially on target switching, when we have to reapply our bleed via gut, and obviously reapply our assault plastique as well. So these kinds of things can be a bit of an issue, but I like re-energizers. You could argue as well charge the line is pretty nice as well. Increases movement speed by an additional 45%. If we absolutely must get out of something, we must be somewhere, very useful. Although it has been diminished slightly, its importance has been diminished by two things that diminish its importance. Number one, the increased cooldown time, and of course number two, storm. If we can storm to the target, then storm is always going to be better than charge the line. So a bit less important in this expansion. I love guard cannon, especially. I like guard cannon. Generally the choice is between focus stims or guard cannon. That's generally the choice for PvE. Okay, this is generally your choice. You can either have 5% damage reduction, this is what we get. Ion Cell is not active every 2 minutes. We want to pop this. 25% extra crit chance for 15 seconds is very, very nice. Also will give us 5% damage reduction. Guard cannon, our shoulder cannon, our shoulder missiles, will heal us for 5% of our total health. The reason I like this in tactic spec is, of course, we get charged loaders. So we get 3 additional shoulder missiles, should we say. So we get 7 shoulder missiles. You can see we got 4 right away. It will go up to 7. So getting those extra shoulder missiles. Now, shoulder missiles generally are filler. We generally use them in place of our tactical surge. If we've got kind of low energy, because each shoulder missile costs no energy, then it's useful as filler. If we don't have shoulder missiles, we tend to use hammer shot. We'll cover that in the rotation. But yeah, that's the kind of thing. Focus stims, it's every 2 minutes. You're going to get 5% damage reduction for 15 seconds. So the problem with this is that we generally don't want to use this as a defensive ability. Okay, this is a very, very good offensive ability. Okay, crit is very important. You see here, Havoc training, 30% extra crit damage. Okay, crit is our most important stat. Okay, we'll discuss stats right now. Stats in 4.0, what has changed? This is where the biggest change has come in 4.0 here. You still want to cap accuracy. Bear in mind your accuracy, we can kind of just ignore ranged, I think, now. I don't know if ranged is really a thing. Tech is very, very important. Bear in mind that most of our damage comes from Assault Plastique, Stock Strike, Cell Burst, Gut. These are all tech abilities, okay? All of these. This High Impact Bolt is a ranged ability, okay? But things like Mortar Volley as well, our Sticky Grenade, our Explosive Surge when we're cleaving, our shoulder missiles, these are all tech. Okay, anything with yellow text, we'll show you. If we walk up to this, whack it, you'll see yellow damage text. If we fire a high impact bolt, the text is white. Okay, that's how you know the difference between ranged and a tech attack. Okay, we are ranged and tech, we don't have any force on melee attacks. Stock Strike is considered a tech attack. You could argue we're striking the enemy with our weapon. Okay, and so gearing, when it comes to gearing, there's only really one choice of stat, really. There's only really one stat, and that's the tertiary stat, okay? So the stat priorities are accuracy to 110, because bear in mind, enemies can still resist your tech attack, still have that 10%. Kind of just ignore range these days, although if you get tech to 110, range will go to 110, so it doesn't really matter. So accuracy is to cap, and then it's crit. Now, we should explain what crit does in this expansion. Critical rating, if we mouse over it, crit increases our range critical chance and our tech critical chance, obviously. It also increases our critical damage bonus. You see here ranged and tech. So Surge is gone. Okay, also crit is now, if I can find a crit, there it is. Crit is now a tertiary stat instead of a secondary stat, so yes, we can have power crit. Power is our only secondary stat that's available for a healer and the DPS, so power crit, we could essentially give that to a healer. Okay, we can give that, you can see that's power alacrity, so you've only got the choice between alacrity and crit once you cap your accuracy. Crit is our go-to generally, 33, I've got 33% crit. Now we should point out that mastery increases your crit chance, but not your critical multiplier. Okay, that is the difference between crit and mastery. Okay, mastery will not increase our multiplier. Okay, that's why we have more crit than we do crit multiplier. Crit multiplier has been nerfed quite a bit. We were sitting on 70% crit. In terms of gearing, I'm sitting in, I've got a 208 main hand, I've got a couple of 216s, pieces of gear. Generally we want crit, power crit generally is our go-to. I've got one alacrity piece, I've got like 1.8%. Generally probably, I don't know if I'll replace that or not, we might need some alacrity, but generally crit is our winner. Okay, crit is our winner because that 30% multiplier, and our crit multiplier can go over 100%. I think it's 700 accuracy is your thing. Okay, for relics I went for the PvP ones, simply because I only had 178 relics and the commendation PvE relics kind of sucked, to be honest. I don't want extra keybinds. Okay, I want them just the passive stats. Generally I went for power and mastery. There is an argument to be made for crit. The Devastating Vengeance one, there is a good argument actually. I need to try it out though. I need to actually sit and try it with power versus or mastery versus crit. Bear in mind, mastery will increase our crit chance. The crit will increase our crit chance and crit multiplier. Okay, so those things will get an increase. Okay, so that will take that off just now. Again, I've got 208 main hand, we got 216. I do have enough comms to buy a 220 piece. I don't know. Outlander gear is the 208, which is the basic gear. You do get commendations or crystals, should we say, thrown at you. I had 0 yesterday and then I have 147. There's no more weekly cap now. There is no more weekly cap on them. There's just 500. These are your basic ultimate elites. Think of them as Warzone comms. I've managed to snag 1,000 from somewhere. If you're struggling to get a main hand, and you have, say, you've got like a 186 or 190 main hand going in at 65, and you're struggling, I'd recommend getting the PvP one. It's 204. I managed to get one on a drop. Bear in mind, you can roll on any ranged weapon these days. This was an assault cannon when it dropped. Okay, I won it on a greed roll, surprisingly. I actually won it on my scoundrel. And also bear in mind that you can use this on any weapon. Okay, any ranged weapon. So I can use this main hand on all of my ranged users. I can give it to my sniper, I can pull it out, put it in a legacy pistol, send it to my scoundrel, send it to my sniper, send it to my bounty hunter, my merc. Doesn't matter, because that's the thing about mastery. It's power crit. So, you know, your scoundrel power crit, yeah, scoundrel will take that, your sniper will take that, as long as we can hit the accuracy cap. That's why I went for accuracy. The implants do have accuracy in them this time. That's why I went for the Outlander ones. This is basically, it's 5 pieces of gear. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've got offhand boots, gloves, and both implants. 5 pieces plus the 1% from your tank companion, that still exists. So 5 pieces of gear. No augments for accuracy. When it comes to augments, it's an interesting choice here. Bear in mind that every piece of gear has power in it. So we've got a crap ton of power. We got 16, it's nearly 1700 power, we'll just call it, 1697. So be wary of power as a stat. Bear in mind that, again, mastery will increase your crit chance. And again, the more crits we get, the better for the Tactics Vanguard. Okay, so generally, your first priority when it comes to raiding is get a set bonus, obviously, as well, when it comes to gearing. But there's not really a huge choice. There's very little ways to mess this up. I've just kept some 186 augments. These are just power augments. I've got a 208 is the new best in slot. You see 73 mastery, 48 endurance. It has, I went for a mastery one. 186 ones have all been converted to mastery, so it doesn't really matter what you get for them. So basically 4.0 is very easy to gear. You can see everything we've got is legacy bound except our main hand. And because they're going to be changing main hands anyway, I like the fact these are blue as well, so it means they're easily swap out. You can swap them out easily. I've kept some of my 186 augments in. I've got 200 as the blue one, 208 is the purple one. That's the difference between them. But yeah, I mean, presence as well, you do get as well, increases your effectiveness of your companion. I can't summon a companion on my ship. Companions don't really matter when it comes to raiding. Bear in mind, it doesn't matter which one you pick. Pick one you like, because they can fill all roles. You just change their role here. I like Senya. I quite like Senya. So you level your companion, you gear your companion basically with influence. You can see she's rank 10, Scorpio is rank 1. So if we summon them, we can't summon them on our ship. I don't think, can we? No, that won't let us. No, it'd probably give us an error message there. So we can't summon them on our ship, so I can't show you them. Basically, they have better stats depending on their influence levels, so it doesn't really make a huge amount of difference. You see here we've got this guy here at level 10, we've got M14X, didn't have to do war zones, he's nearly level 10. They do go up to level 50, so God knows what they're going to do at level 50. I mean, they could probably solo hard mode ops at level 50. They might have like 200k health or something. It might go scale to a ridiculous level or something like that. So what we are going to do, take a look at our rotation. Hasn't really changed. We have went long on this video. There's a lot of explanations, to be honest. There's a lot of things to explain in 4.0, especially when it comes to gearing. But our rotation hasn't really changed a massive amount. We want to start, of course, with our out of combat heal. There's the carbonite chamber, bringing back bad memories for her. I really should get rid of that. When she nearly died of carbonite poison. Don't die. So you want your 4 stacks of energy load. Okay, it lights up whenever you get 4 stacks, let you know. You also want to keep track of how many stacks you've got. Okay, 4 is the maximum, so you want to fire this off at 4 stacks. Okay, now we don't want to fire this off right away. What we want to do is get as many debuffs on the target as possible. So what we're going to do, our opener, is we're going to have our shoulder missiles loaded as well. And we're going to jet charge in, jet charge, assault plastique, get our gut up to bleed, get our debuffs off, and then fire out, of course, our massive cell burst. Of course, we're going to use battle focus at the pool as well. Our goal is to get all the debuffs. You see the 3 debuffs. You got the bleed, the sunder, which reduces its armor rating, and the susceptible. Okay, we want those 3 debuffs, so we jet charge in to close the gap. Assault plastique, gut. See, what jet charge allows us to do is get gut up faster. Because before we used to run in and it was assault plastique, we were waiting a few seconds, gut, hit, fire that off, then fire that away. Now your priority is a priority system, okay? Our priority is always going to be high impact bolt. Okay, bear in mind a proc high impact bolt, as you saw there, we had the accelerated real proc, will refund us 5 energy. So we want to get a high impact bolt out when we have no stacks. If we have 4 stacks of energy load, then our priority becomes cell burst. Okay, high impact bolt is our top priority when we're generating, because our goal is to generate 4 stacks. Okay, we want to be generating those 4 stacks. High impact bolt, whether it's procced or not, doesn't really matter unless you have 4 stacks. Your secondary priority is assault plastique. We want to use that on cooldown. We then want to use stock strike. So if this is available and these 3 are available, then, and we have no stacks, or we have less than 4 stacks, high impact bolt, then assault plastique, then stock strike. If none of these are available, bear in mind we don't really need to refresh gut, because high impact bolt will do that for us. We only really need to refresh gut when we're changing target. Okay, when we're switching from target 1 to target 2, we always want the target bleeding. Targets that are bleeding take 2% more damage, 3% more damage, should we say. Increase the damage you deal to bleeding targets by 3%. Bear in mind we get 5% extra damage when we use our susceptible, and of course our stock strike, if I can find it. Stock strike doesn't say here, I can't find it. It is there. Stock strike also reduces the target's armor, so we want those up, and we want to get this to hit as hard as possible. We ideally want it under the effects of battle focus as well. Okay, that is going to be the goal. In terms of filler, basic filler is going to be, if we're lower on energy, we'll just jet charge in. We jet charge, we assault plastique, we fire that off. I haven't got that up, but it doesn't really matter. So we fire them off, and say we got low energy, then we're going to fire one of them off, fire one of them off. That will redo our energy. Fire off that, fire off one of them. You can see our energy yo-yoing around here. So we always want to keep it above, generally about 70% is where we want to keep it. If it dips to 50%, we get 50% energy. Reserve power cell and mortar volley generally is the thing. If mortar volley is on cooldown, you've had to do some cleave. Pulse cannon then is a good one, because bear in mind, mortar volley is a 3-second channel. It's a 3 seconds of spending no energy, and we're still keeping up damage, because bear in mind we do get a 10% damage increase to mortar volley. In terms of cleave, when it comes to cleave, this spec not the best, to be honest. It's not the worst spec in the game. However, if we're cleaving, if we're doing constant cleave, we probably want to go plasma. Plasma was the daddy. I don't know if it still is, to be honest, but most of the abilities are still intact for plasma. I haven't really had a chance. Don't get stuck there. Don't get stuck, Lizzie. Right there. So most of the abilities for plasma still, I think it's still pretty much the same, really. So cleaving, generally we want to hit mortar volley for cleaving. Mortar volley is our priority. Sticky grenade as well does 50% extra damage, and then we're just going to fill in with our explosive surge, which is quite nice. Gives us a bit of mobility. Again, increasing the damage. If we're doing constant cleave, then sharp satchel is decent. But if we're in a fight where we're really needing to cleave, plasma generally still going to be the winner, I think. Still going to be the winner over this one. It tends to cost us a lot of energy when we're cleaving in this spec. We still also got pulse cannon as well as filler. You can fill in with pulse cannon and explosive surge as well. Pulse cannon is nice if we start to get low energy as well while cleaving. We can just use our power cell and pulse cannon, but our priority is always going to be mortar volley, which is quite nice in this spec. So yeah, that's pretty much all of the rotation. It is a priority system. Again, I like it. I actually like this spec. It's very nice. Good mobility. Very few abilities that we really have to stand and channel. there. So what I like to do is, again, I like to keep a shoulder cannon there. Battle focus we want to use generally on cooldown. If you can try and... It is 15 seconds it lasts, so you don't really have to try and line it up on the second attempt with Cell Burst, although try and get it off on Cell Burst, because Cell Burst is our big hitter when everything stacks up. We want the stars to line up and then fire a big Cell Burst. One of the problems while leveling is doing that rotation. Most of the targets were dead before we could hit Cell Burst, to be honest with you. That was most of what was happening while leveling. You fight an elite enemy, you'd be like, charge in, Salt Plastique, gut, Stock Strike, oh, it's dead. And it's like, oh, it's died. Okay. You're sitting there with 4 stacks of Cell Burst and like, oh, it was almost going to be awesome. Just bear in mind that Cell Burst does very little damage when we don't use it on 4 stacks. That's why we always want to use it. Unless your target is about to die, then using it less than 4 stacks. Unless if your target switching, generally our target switching rotation. Say we've just killed one lurkerling. We've killed the first lurkerling, moving to the second one. If we're not within jet charge range, then we probably want to move to the target while firing this. Okay, tactical surge. Assuming that these aren't at 4 stat. And again, high impact bolt is always a priority. We can move to the target before we get in range, fire off one of them, and then gut is your priority, and then you're going to go Assault Plastique. But you always want to keep the target bleeding. Okay, we don't really care about the dot that bleeding does. It does very little. 822 is nothing. Bear in mind, high impact bolt will refresh the dot as well, so that's pretty useful to know. Don't let that bleed fall off, because it is a DPS loss to have that bleed falling off us. Okay, so when we're target switching, if Assault Plastique is still on cooldown, gut becomes Assault Plastique has a delayed charge. Okay, that's why we use that and then gut, so you get the debuff up, and again then it does the big damage. Okay, so that's why we use Assault Plastique. But make sure before you fire off Cell Burst that Assault Plastique has gone off. Okay, make sure this susceptible debuff has gone off, because it does increase our tech damage. Okay, it won't increase our high impact bolt damage, but it will increase our tech damage, and that big Cell Burst, getting it to hit as hard as possible, is our top priority. So anyway, that is all for this video. That is all for the Tactics Vanguard in 4.0. Looking forward to raiding with it, to be honest with you. I'm looking forward to being a melee DPS, especially with the mobility that we have. But yeah, so that is all for this video. So thank you for joining me, and we'll see you again soon, and goodbye.